let me introduce our next guest. Peter Schweizer is a best-selling author whose new book may be his best yet. Here it is. It's called Blood Money: Why the Powerful Turn a Blind Eye While China Kills Americans. Peter, welcome to Flashpoint. Glad you're here tonight.
Great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. All right. So we've known for years the Chinese steal American intellectual property. It's just kind of the American way. We have to deal with this. They've infiltrated our universities, but there's a lot more than that in your book. Explain.
Yeah, basically what I did was look at Chinese military documents, and what they describe is their policy of disintegration warfare against America. And the idea is pretty simple, and it goes from some of the ancient strategists in China, as people like Sun Tzu, who said the best strategist is the one who defeats their enemy without actually having to fight them. And that is what China's strategy of disintegration warfare is. And as the name implies, the goal of disintegration warfare is to fragment America, to tear it apart, to exaggerate the conflicts that exist, to create further divisions within our country, and in some cases to actually kill Americans, whether it's through fentanyl poisoning, whether it's through fueling violence on our streets by arming criminal gangs. These are all things that China is directly involved in, and it's quite successful because our leaders in Washington, many of them, simply don't want to confront this problem, either because they are compromised personally because of their financial entanglements, or they don't want the heavy lift of actually having to confront China on these matters.
All right. So, Peter, I mean, you bring up the whole financial entanglement as maybe why the powerful turned a blind eye to all of this. But is there anything else, any other reason, or is it just everybody, or so many people being bought out by China?
It's a great question. I think most people that are refusing to confront them don't necessarily have financial entanglements, but they're go along to get along. And look, if you look at the reality of what China is doing to us, you can't have a normal relationship with this country until their behavior stops. That means that leaders have to make very hard choices. That means you have to look at trade agreements. You have to look at the other things that we are doing, engaging with China, and halt them. And there are a lot of people in Washington who simply don't want to do that. Winston Churchill, before the Second World War, talked about how many of the leaders in the UK did not want to confront Germany, even though they knew what was going on. He said they would stare at the problems with vacant eyes. In other words, they were willfully blind. They knew what was going on, but they were choosing not to look at it because they didn't want to have to make difficult choices. So there are a lot of those people in Washington, D.C. as well who are trying to take the easy route out. The problem is, of course, Americans are dying and they're not doing anything about it.
So how many American politicians do you suspect are being bought off by the Chinese?
It's hard to place a number on it, but if you look at Joe Biden's financial entanglements, you would certainly say the president of the United States. You would look on the Republican side and look at a guy like Senator Mitch McConnell. Those would be two examples. There are others. But what China has done very successfully is what they call elite capture, which is they've forged these commercial ties. They've helped families, powerful political families, get wealthy in China. The Bidens have received some $31 million from Chinese businessmen, beginning when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States. There's no tangible, legitimate business or service that they provided. It was simply money going to the Biden family. And in the case of Mitch McConnell, they built this shipping business that's enormously successful, enormously profitable. The problem is that if Senator Mitch McConnell were to call out China, confront them directly of what they're doing to the American people, they could destroy the family business overnight.
Sure will. All right. So earlier in the show, I'm sure you saw part of it. We were discussing the rise of LGBTQ plus in America. Your book tells us about the transgender movement, has the support of two billionaires with strong connections to China. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is probably the most startling find. I didn't expect to find this, but yeah, there are two China-based billionaires that have poured tens of millions of dollars into the trans movement. And what's really important to highlight is these two individuals are not advocating for these positions in China itself. They are only advocating for them in the United States, which to me indicates that they view this as a weapon in a way to deploy against America. One of the billionaires is a guy named Joe Tsai. He's the co-founder of Alibaba, the current chairman of Alibaba. That's basically China's equivalent of Amazon in China. It's very close to the Chinese government. He's worth probably $25 billion. And Joe Tsai has poured tens of millions of dollars into trans research in the United States and also trans activism. He owns an NBA team called the Brooklyn Nets. He also owns the WNBA team in New York. That team is the first professional sports team that's had a trans athlete playing on the team. So he is all in on this issue, except, of course, as it relates to China. He takes the very strong CCP line when it comes to these issues and LGBTQ issues. The other billionaire is an American named Roy Singham, who sold his company called ThoughtWorks to an investment firm partly owned by the Chinese government. That made him a billionaire. He promptly moved to China. He lives in China today. He's very close friends with people within the Chinese Communist Party, and he has poured $161 million into radical causes in the United States over the last 3 to 4 years. Those include LGBT causes. And again, he is not advocating for these positions in China. He's only pushing this divisive agenda in the United States.
All right. So, but help me understand, and the people at home are watching. So, well, if they don't have it in China, why would they push it so hard here in America?
Well, because it fits the hypothesis behind disintegration warfare, which is the doctrine they call it. They want to divide Americans. They want to turn Americans against each other. They are doing things, for example, to strain racial relations in America. They have a massive operation involving thousands of Chinese military officials. Each of them, in turn, controls thousands of social media accounts in the United States. And these social media accounts appear as if they are actually American citizens. And basically half of these social media accounts will say America's a hopelessly racist society, it's irredeemable. The other half of these accounts say, I only like white people, I don't like minorities. They're trying to sow racial division in America. It's same thing is happening, I believe, on the trans issue. They see this as a highly volatile, divisive issue in America, and they see it as an opportunity to tear Americans apart. And as one Chinese military official, as I quote in Blood Money, says, this internal struggle going on in America is sapping America of its energy. And they believe that creates an opportunity for them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let me, you brought up social media. So let's talk about TikTok. You know, there's the ban on, what's going before D.C. here. Do we ban TikTok or do we keep it? On one hand, you don't want it to weaponize a ban against free speech. But if with such connections back to China, what's the answer?
Yeah, I think that this bill is a good bill. No bill is going to be perfect, but I think this bill makes sense, and here's why. It's not just that ByteDance, which is the parent company, the company that owns TikTok, is in China and connected to the CCP. It's that it's very closely wedded to the CCP. What do I mean by that? Well, there's this algorithm, this formula that they use to attract young people to TikTok. That is not only a company secret for ByteDance. In 2019, the Chinese government declared that that is also a Chinese state secret. That's how much they value this and how closely this company is wedded to the Chinese government. The other thing to keep in mind is that this company, ByteDance, which again is the parent company that controls TikTok, also does extensive research with the Ministry of State Security, which is the Chinese spy apparatus. This is all of their spy agencies, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, all rolled into one. ByteDance works with them regularly on artificial intelligence research. And one of the things they're looking at is how to manipulate people through social media. In the book Blood Money, I quote extensively from Chinese military officials and from officials within the Ministry of Propaganda in China. And while they're debating in Washington whether this is a threat, In China, they see this as a powerful tool that they are already using to lure young people away from American views about individualism and about freedom of speech and pushing them in a more collectivist direction. These are not my words. This is not my hypothesis. This is actually what Chinese officials themselves are saying. One Chinese official even says that TikTok is the ultimate Trojan horse that they can use against the West. So they are absolutely doing it. And in the book, I quote from them extensively on how this actually works. It's quite subtle, but it's also quite effective.
All right. I've got to get to this question because this one hits home with my family. Flashpoint was birthed back in 2020, right in the middle of the COVID pandemic. And we've covered the truth about the Wuhan lab time and time again. I want you to tell me about what you talk about the Wuhan lab, but tell me about the real Anthony Fauci. Why, on the back of your book, it says here, how Anthony Fauci shielded China while the CCP worked to maximize the U.S. COVID deaths. Please explain.
Yeah, so we know that COVID killed a million American people. It's also pretty clear it came from this Chinese lab. Whether it was intentional or accidental, we may never know. But China did a series of things early on in 2020 to maximize the body count. One of the things they did was for 3 months, they lied. They knew in November of 2019 that they had a virus and that this virus was transmittable from person to person. They told the West, they told the world that it was not transferable from person to person for 3 months when they knew it. What did they do during that 3 months? They cornered the market in PPE supplies. These are the masks and the gowns that medical personnel use. I'm not talking about the sort of silly cloth masks that they told everybody to wear. I'm talking about the K95 masks that medical personnel needed to be safe during this crisis. They cornered the market. So when we faced COVID, we had a shortage of these supplies. That was engineered by China, and I lay that out explicitly in the book. There were a series of other things they did to maximize the body count. Tony Fauci was aware of these activities. We got access to his emails through the Freedom of Information Act. He was aware of these activities. He made excuses for China, and he covered up China's activities in this regard. There's even one email exchange that he has with a reporter from the New York Times who goes on about how heroic the Chinese people are in response to COVID. And they're doing this amazing, selfless work to prevent the spread of this virus. In contrast, he says, to sort of the fat American slobs who are selfishly worried about themselves. He sends this email to Tony Fauci. Fauci's email was, "You raise a really good point." He agrees with him. So this gives us real insight into how Fauci views China and how he views the American response. He had disdain for the American response. And he even said well after the pandemic that was done that China, with their extreme lockdown measures, were much better in handling this virus than we were, even though everybody knows that China radically lied and undercounted the amount of casualties. The numbers were completely fake. So it's pretty remarkable that even our healthcare professionals would not stand up for us and would not defend us, and to this day are following the Chinese line.
Is that because they're on the take as well?
I think in the case of Tony Fauci, it's a combination of embarrassment and basically being co-opted by his professional colleagues. He viewed the people running the Wuhan lab as sort of professional equals. They're medical professionals. He either willfully ignored or was naive in not recognizing that the people running the lab in Wuhan were not only scientists, they were also the leaders of the Chinese Communist Party political cell that existed in the laboratory, and that they had an obligation to protect the CCP above all else. But I also think you have this problem that there was a lot of research that was being funded by Tony Fauci or other government agencies through a third party, this nonprofit called EcoHealth Alliance. They were funding research in the Wuhan lab that it seems put pretty clearly had something to do with the virus that was released in 2020. So this was deeply embarrassing to him. He realized that it could blow up on him, and he felt it was better for him professionally and for his reputation to try to cover up what China was doing.
All right, the book Blood Money, Why the Powerful Turn a Blind Eye While China Kills Americans. Peter Schweizer. Peter, how can they get the book?
Well, fortunately, the book is very popular. We were #1 on the New York Times nonfiction list. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Costco. You should be able to find it anywhere. You can go to my website, peterschweitzer.com, and give me a comment. Let me know what you think about the book. I'd love to hear from you.
Peter, thank you for being on Flashpoint. I'm sure we'll get you back soon. Thank you for all the good information. Thank you for the work you're doing, being a real patriot.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it very much.
All right, bye-bye.